Hey, this is Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com. This is anti-war news for Monday, October 21st, 2024. All right, first thing, it is our fundraiser at antiwar.com. If you read the site, if you watch this show, and you appreciate what we do, and you have the means, please go to antiwar.com/donate to support us. We are 100% funded by our readers. This is how we get by. And you can see the different ways that you could help us out. Credit card, PayPal, cryptocurrency. A lot of people give Bitcoin or some other type of crypto. So antiwar.com/donate. Help us keep this thing moving along here so we could focus on all the craziness that's happening. All right, so the first story at the top of antiwar.com today, U.S. intelligence leak outlines Israeli preparations to strike Iran. So this article is from Connor Freeman. He wrote this up on Saturday. Leaked top secret documents from the Pentagon and the National Security Agency outline Israeli preparations for a major attack against Iran. And this was first reported by CNN. And these documents were published Friday on a Telegram channel named Middle East Spectator that claims it received the information from a source within a U.S. intelligence agency. Beside the U.S., these documents dated October 15th and 16th, so very recent documents. They were only meant to be viewed by officials in Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. So that's the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. And so CNN had a U.S. official confirm the authenticity of the documents. I think Axios did as well. So U.S. officials are saying that these documents are legit. And they include a visual intelligence report from the Pentagon's National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and they detail ongoing activities being carried out in anticipation of the attack in Iran at Israeli Air Force bases. And essentially what this is observations that the U.S. made while spying on Israeli military drills. So we published the documents at antiwar.com because CNN had a story on it, but they didn't want to publish the document. They didn't want to quote the whole thing either. They wanted to, I guess, protect the U.S. Intelligence agencies. So we went ahead and published the documents, which were easy to find on Telegram. And at this point, they're all over Twitter and everything as well. So again, essentially, it's what the U.S. observed. Connor mentioned some things here. It says that the U.S. has observed Israeli Air Force exercises using air-launched ballistic missiles, air-to-surface ballistic missiles, fighter jets, UAVs, which are drones, and refueling tankers previously used during Israeli strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. The Israeli Air Force has handled at least 16 Golden Horizon air-launched ballistic missiles and 40 IS-02 rocket ALBMs since October 8th. So these are the types of weapon systems that they're practicing with in preparation for this attack. And the fueling tankers is a big thing because if Israel wants to launch airstrikes in Iran, that's a long distance that they have to go. But Israel did show that they can launch strikes at that range when they bombed Yemen twice. Hodeidah is further away from Israel than Tehran. You know, I questioned if they actually, they claim that they carried out those strikes without any U.S. support. I've wondered if maybe the U.S. did actually refuel the planes, but according to this, they're drilling with these tanker planes that they can use to refuel their jets. So one of the documents also reveals that Israel maintains a nuclear weapons arsenal, which we know that. We know that the U.S. knows that. But the U.S. doesn't officially acknowledge it. So to see it mentioned in a leaked U.S. document, and essentially what it says here is, let me see if I can find it. It just says, we have not observed indications that Israel intends to use a nuclear weapon. So it is an acknowledgement that Israel has nukes. And so, the situation with the U.S., again, they don't officially acknowledge that Israel has a nuclear weapon stockpile. Israel is not a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And this is a very controversial because there are amendments to U.S. foreign assistance laws that were made by U.S. Senators Stuart Symington and John Glenn in 1976 that make U.S. military aid to Israel illegal because Israel is not a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty and they have a nuclear stockpile. But this is something that's ignored, and one reason why is because they don't want to enforce these laws. And essentially, the U.S. has had a secret deal with Israel. You don't declare your nuclear stockpile, and we won't try to get you to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And then Israel also has its own reasons to not want to make it official that they have nukes. But U.S. officials are telling the media that the leak is extremely serious. At the same time, officials emphasize that it will probably not affect Israel's plans. Without commenting further, the Pentagon, as well as the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, have not disputed the document's authenticity. The U.S. has apologized to Israel for the leak. With stuff like this, there's always a question, was this leaked intentionally? Or obviously it was leaked intentionally by somebody. So you wonder why some people think maybe it's someone within the U.S. that wants to prevent this war with Iran that seems to be looming, or it could be it's a Five Eyes document, so it could have been an official from one of those countries who's not thrilled about what the U.S. is doing, just trying to get this information out there. Is it a threat to Iran? The acknowledgement of Israeli nuclear weapons. So these are things we could wonder, but we'll probably never really know unless we find out more information about, if some stuff comes out about the leaker. All right. So the next story here, the U.S. THAAD missile defense system now operational in Israel. So the U.S. Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Battery, or THAAD, that has been deployed to Israel with about 100 U.S. troops is now operational. And this was reported by the Israeli broadcaster Khan on Sunday. The U.S. deployed the missile defense system amid anticipation of an Israeli attack on Iran in retaliation for the October 1st Iranian missile barrage that was fired at Israel, and that came in response to a series of Israeli escalations in the region. The U.S. and Israel are anticipating Iran to hit back in response to any Israeli attack, making the U.S. troops deployed with the THAAD system a potential target of Iranian ballistic missiles. Israel's Channel 12 reported on Friday that Israel has requested the U.S. to send another THAAD system, so they want another one of these big missile batteries, which would be another about 100 U.S. troops. That sounds like Israel is expecting something big if they want another one of these U.S. missile defense systems. There's been no word yet. That was just reported by Israeli media on Friday. There's been no word if the U.S. is considering it or if they denied it or anything like that. So throughout the past year, the U.S. has deployed additional military assets to the Middle East to show support for Israel. But sending the THAAD system, this is the first significant deployment, U.S. deployment to Israeli territory in this past year. There is U.S. Special Operations soldiers in Israel helping with intelligence stuff. We don't know exactly how many. But this is the first, out in the open, big deployment of some military hardware. The U.S. may support Israel's attack on Iran either by launching airstrikes of its own or providing intelligence. Intelligence is more likely there. But either way, even if the U.S. doesn't support the Israeli strikes on Iran directly, they are supporting it by vowing to defend Israel from any Iranian response, of course. So, these U.S. troops, this battery system, is going to be a potential target of Iranian missiles. And if things really escalate, U.S. troops in Iraq and Syria and elsewhere in the Middle East could also become targets as well. All right, so the next one here, Iran denies any role in drone attack on Netanyahu's house. So this was another thing from the weekend. There was a drone attack that hit Netanyahu's house. And Israeli media says that 3 drones were fired from Lebanon. 2 were intercepted and 1 hit his home. There was minor damage. They say him and his wife were not home, so there was no casualties or anything. Iran's permanent mission to the UN has denied that Tehran played any role in the drone attack that targeted the home of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Saturday, which caused no casualties. So the mission to the UN said, quote, "We reject the baseless allegations made by the Zionist regime regarding Iran's involvement," end quote. So the Iranian mission said that Hezbollah was behind the attack, but so far the Lebanese group has not taken responsibility. As far as I've seen, I haven't seen Hezbollah actually take responsibility, and they usually do take responsibility for their drone attacks and stuff. The Iranian mission said, quote, "We have already responded to the regime's previous crimes, and this action was taken by the Lebanese Hezbollah," end quote. So the denial from Iran comes as Israeli officials are pointing the finger at Iran for this attack and calling for a response. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz rejected the Iranian denial, calling the statement lies. He said, quote, "The primary proxy, the tentacle Iran created, funded, armed, trained, and now controls in all its operations, is suddenly portrayed as an independent entity. Your lies and false pretenses won't help you. You are responsible," end quote. So Israel's Channel 12 reported that the drone attack on Netanyahu's home could give Israel greater legitimacy for a wider range of targets. That's how the Israeli media report put it. So basically they're saying they could use this to hit more targets inside Iran. And Iran, does support Hezbollah, of course, but Hezbollah and the Iraqi Shia militias and things, they do act independently in a lot of ways. And this is kind of the logic here. It's like, okay, well, if Israel can hit Iran for a Hezbollah attack like this, then can Russia hit the U.S. for a Ukrainian attack on its soil? Can, Hamas hit the U.S. for what it's supporting in Gaza? That's what it opens you up to. But anyway, and then I just get into some stuff about the planned Israeli attack on Iran. But this could be used to kind of expand things. And, one thing, so Sinwar, related to Sinwar being killed, I think the one update from the last episode was that Hamas did confirm it. They put out a big statement about it. I think I was pretty clear that I didn't really have any hope that Netanyahu would use his death to end, to wind things down. It's clear that he's not doing that. He's just escalated things, escalated the bombing in Gaza, escalated the bombing in Lebanon since then. So the next one here, Israeli strike in northern Gaza kills 87 Palestinians. So at least 87 Palestinians were killed by an Israeli strike on residential buildings in Beit Lahia, a city in northern Gaza. This was reported by CNN on Sunday. The report cited Gaza's health ministry, which said that the dead included 27 bodies that had been retrieved and 60 bodies still stuck under the rubble. So usually the health ministry just reports the bodies that are brought to the hospital, but they're counting people who are missing at the scene. I probably just to, so people understand how massive of a airstrike this was. At least 40 people were wounded by the strike, and some are in very critical condition. Footage of the aftermath at the Kadwan hospital where the casualties were taken showed that children were among the dead. I saw some really horrific images and videos from the strike. An unidentified Palestinian man told CNN that the buildings were sheltering displaced families. So you see this picture here. I mean, they just wiped out this building and damaged a few ones around it. So this is the Palestinian who they spoke with. He said, quote, "We call on the international community to end the war. We beg you, we are civilians with no connection to anyone. We demand that you stop the war," end quote. So the massive strike on Beit Lahia comes as Israeli soldiers are attempting to carry out an ethnic cleansing plan known as the General's Plan in northern Gaza, which has been under a tightening siege for over 2 weeks and cut off from food, medicine, water, and other basic necessities. The Israeli military has ordered the evacuation of 3 hospitals in northern Gaza, but the staff refused to leave so they could continue to treat their patients. Gaza's health ministry said Saturday that at least 2 patients have died at the Indonesian hospital in Beit Lahia due to the Israeli siege. They said, quote, "The death of 2 patients inside the Indonesian hospital in the northern Gaza Strip as a result of the hospital's siege and the power outage and medical supplies," end quote. So they're saying people are dying because of the lack of supplies coming in. And it's just a slaughterhouse in northern Gaza. I mean, there's been strikes all weekend. It's just really, really horrific. I know I use the word horrific a lot. I can't, it's just that's what I need to say to describe what's happening in Gaza every day. It's horrors every single day. All right, so the next one here, Israel bans aid groups from operating in Gaza. This one is from Kyle Anzalone at the Libertarian Institute. So Israel has banned 6 aid groups from providing medical care to the people of Gaza. Doctors who have worked inside the Strip have issued warnings about the massive human toll Israel's onslaught has wreaked. So on Thursday, the World Health Organization said it was informed by Tel Aviv that healthcare workers from 6 groups, including the Palestinian American Medical Association, can no longer provide aid in the besieged enclave. So if that sounds familiar, the Palestinian American Medical Association, Dr. Feroz Sidhwa, who's an American surgeon with this group, he was the one who organized this letter signed by 99 American healthcare workers who volunteered in Gaza, who estimated that the death toll has surpassed 118,000, who detailed all the horrors, children being shot in the head on a daily basis. And then he also wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that made a lot of people angry, but him and all these other doctors just saying what they saw in Gaza. So now they're banning this organization from working in Gaza. That means those doctors, I don't know the extent of it. I don't know how many of those 99 doctors worked for that organization, but this is obviously retaliation for that letter and the attention that they've drawn on this, because they don't let foreign journalists in. I saw, what's his name? Douglas Murray. He's like, I forget. He was in Gaza apparently, but he's not a journalist. He's just super pro-Israel. But anyway, so they're the journalists. It's the doctors who are reporting back, and they're working at the hospitals where they see the most horrific things. So this is, I think, obviously retaliation for that. All right, so the next one here, artist who depicted war in Gaza killed in Israeli airstrike. This article is from Middle East Eye. So Mahassan El-Khatib used her talent in illustration and character design to document the horrors of Israel's war on Gaza since it erupted last October. On Saturday, she posted her last artwork depicting the 19-year-old Shaban al-Dalu, who was burned to death during the Israeli bombing of Al-Aqsa a few days ago. Shortly afterwards, she was killed in an Israeli airstrike that targeted her neighborhood in Jabalia camp in northern Gaza. Mahassan and her family were at home when the attack happened. In a Facebook post, she shared that there was no safe place left in Gaza to escape to, having already evacuated multiple times with death constantly looming. For the last 15 days, the Israeli army has been invading northern Gaza under relentless bombing, which residents describe as the most violent incursion since October 7th. So you see some of her art here, and I've seen some of this on Twitter before, and she's been killed. Just tragic. Lots of young people like this being slaughtered by the IDF, people with ambitions and dreams, and they just get stuck, and it just seems like a matter of time before you follow someone. There's been journalists that I followed on Twitter, at least one, who end up getting killed, and there's others who I follow in Gaza, and it's just you always wonder. All right, so the next one here, Israel starts bombing banks in Lebanon. So late Sunday, the Israeli military began launching a series of airstrikes in Beirut's southern suburbs of Dahia and in eastern Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, targeting the branches of a bank. So the strikes began shortly after an Israeli military spokesman said the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, would start hitting buildings that belong to Al-Qard Al-Hassan Association, a bank that Israel accused of financing Hezbollah. The IDF said, quote, the Air Force will launch extensive strikes on targets in the southern suburb of Beirut, targeting Hezbollah-linked economic assets, end quote. So they're bombing banks, and they're not even trying to say that there's some military infrastructure there. They're just bombing banks. So this bank, Al-Qard Al-Hassan, is under U.S. sanctions over allegations related to Hezbollah, but it's also used by ordinary Lebanese citizens, civilians, and they have a lot of branches. According to Reuters, the bank has 30 branches across Lebanon, and Lebanon's a small country, including 15 in densely populated parts of Beirut and the southern suburbs. So this is what Israel's bombing. Lebanon's national news agency reported at least 11 Israeli airstrikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs, including one that landed near Beirut International Airport, and many targeted Al-Qard, Al-Hassan buildings. Several strikes were also reported in the Bekaa Valley. The bank issued a statement assuring its customers that it had taken, quote, all of the necessary procedures since the beginning of the war to safeguard your deposits and valuables and can confirm that you should not worry, they are safe, end quote. So Israeli strikes have been pounding Beirut's southern suburbs in recent days, despite the U.S. assuring the Lebanese government that attacks on the capital city and its suburbs would ease. On Saturday, at least a dozen Israeli strikes hit Dahia. Dahia, I believe is how you pronounce it. I know there's some people in Lebanon who listen to this show, or someone who used to live in Lebanon too. I know one person in Lebanon, one person who used to live in Lebanon. So you could correct me. The Lebanese health ministry reported that at least 17 people were killed and another 59 were injured by Israeli strikes on Saturday, bringing the death toll since October 2023 to 2,464. So we don't know the breakdown of civilians, but we know a lot of civilians have been killed. And this is, again, they're just bombing banks. I mean, imagine if, there's just no rules of war here with Israel. I mean, just bombing banks. I don't know. There's just something about that. Of course, they've bombed all sorts of civilian infrastructure, but, it's like if the Hezbollah or something was bombing Israeli banks. I mean, think about the reaction to that, All right, so the next one here, Israeli airstrikes kill 3 Lebanese soldiers in South Lebanon. This one is from Jason Ditz. So Lebanese Army Command reports that a military vehicle traveling on the highway between Ain Ebel and Hanin were targeted and destroyed by an Israeli airstrike, and this was on Sunday, and 3 Lebanese soldiers were killed. So this is the Lebanese military, which is separate from Hezbollah, and there have been Lebanese soldiers killed in Israeli airstrikes, but this appears to be the first direct targeting of the Lebanese military. I don't think Israel has answered for this yet. I mean, Israel's bombing, there's so many bombings and war crimes happening that they don't have to answer for, all of them. I mean, they're not really answering for any of them in a real way, but you know what I mean? There's just so much happening, like the media requests and stuff. It's just, they're not going to respond about every airstrike that they launch. So we don't know what their justification is for this, for targeting the Lebanese military. I mean, they might just be trying to provoke a bigger war. All right, so the next one here, Israeli military bulldozer demolishes UNIFIL Watchtower. This is another one from Jason Ditz. So the growing chorus of international voices calling for Israel to stop hassling the UNIFIL peacekeepers in southern Lebanon appears to be falling on deaf ears. And a new statement from UNIFIL reports that an IDF bulldozer demolished their perimeter fence and a watchtower in Marwahin. So Israel has not commented on this specific incident yet, and it's unclear why they destroyed that particular watchtower, and in so a deliberate manner. It is worth noting that just a few days ago, Israeli tanks attacked and damaged a similar UNIFIL watchtower and cameras in Kfar Kela, which is about 5 kilometers from the site of Sunday's demolition. Israel is evidently keen not to have UNIFIL observers active in this central part of the broader area. So there's been a lot of attacks on these UNIFIL peacekeepers, none killed yet, but it seems like it's only a matter of time. And now they're just outright destroying their parts of their bases. All right, so the next one here, 2 Jordanians killed by Israel in a clash at the border. So this is, I think, potentially a very big deal. This is another one written by Jason. He wrote this on Saturday. So 2 Jordanian gunmen, or he wrote this on Friday, sorry. 2 Jordanian gunmen were killed today, so this is Friday, and 2 Israeli soldiers were wounded in a clash at the border fence between Jordan and Israel in the Arava Valley near the Red Sea. The gunmen reportedly crossed a few meters into southern Israel before opening fire. Israel said their wounded were soldiers from the 727th Battalion. One of the soldiers was active duty and the other was a reservist. They said the roads were being blocked to search for a possible third attacker. So there was initial speculation that the 2 Jordanians were rogue soldiers wearing uniforms, though Jordan's military has since said that was not the case and none of their personnel were involved in the attack. Jordan's Muslim Brotherhood subsequently issued its own statement on the matter, saying the two attackers were members of their organization. They said the attack was meant to support the ongoing resistance against Israel. So again, this is a big deal. This is the Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan, which their their political wing has about 1/5 of the seats in Jordan's parliament. And they are saying that their members, launched this attack. And Jordan's kind of a powder keg. I think with the high population of Palestinian refugees, something like half of the population is Palestinian refugees, and they're not happy with their government's, with King Abdullah's relationship with the U.S. and Israel and everything. So, there's always a chance of things really exploding there. And I think this is a sign that as long as things continue, there really is a chance of that. And so it's definitely an area to keep an eye on. Oh, yeah, there was an attack. A Jordanian truck driver entered the occupied West Bank and attacked and killed 3 Israeli security guards near the border. So that happened last month. That one I didn't see claimed by anybody. But it still, again, it goes to show that this is could turn into a very contentious area. Jordan's the one country that I've been to. Is it the one country I've been to in the Middle East? I think so. It's really a great, beautiful, amazing country. And I went to the Dead Sea and the Jordan River, the site where they believe Jesus Christ was baptized by John the Baptist. And right across the river was like a big Israeli watchtower. So it's like the east bank of the Jordan River. But yeah, it's a really cool place, Jordan. All right, so the next one here, the U.S. will not confirm claims of North Korean troops in Ukraine. So Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said Saturday that he could not confirm reports about North Korean troops being sent to Russia to prepare for fighting in Ukraine, a narrative being pushed hard by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as he's looking for more support from the West. So Austin said, quote, "I've seen those reports in the media. I can't confirm those reports at this point in time. This is something that we will certainly continue to investigate," end quote. A day earlier, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said the alliance had no evidence that North Korean troops were already fighting on the ground in Ukraine. There's been reports that have claimed that. He said, quote, "At this moment, our official position is that we cannot confirm reports that North Koreans are actively now as soldiers engaged in the war effort," end quote. So South Korea's spy agency claimed in a statement on Friday that North Korea sent 1,500 special operations soldiers to eastern Russia to support the war in Ukraine. Seoul cited satellite images that purported to show a Russian ship moving North Korean soldiers and other images that showed troop formations inside East Russia. Not exactly definitive proof, saying, oh, look, this ship's carrying troops, and then you see these soldiers, these are North Koreans, but it's a satellite image. So, my opinion on this, I think it's possible that North Korea has sent some troops to Russia. They did sign that deal in June, and I just covered the other day, Russia's saying that if North Korea comes under attack, they're going to give them military assistance. So I think it's possible that they've sent some troops into Russia for training, things like that. And this, so I'll continue with the story, and then I'll get into that stuff. So the South Korean statement was followed by a video published by Ukraine that purported to show North Korean troops receiving Russian military equipment at a training camp in eastern Russia, in an area that actually shares a small border with North Korea. But this video has not been independently verified, and even if it showed what the Ukrainians claim, that's not evidence that the North Korean soldiers were actually preparing to fight for Russia. If they're in eastern Russia doing some training, that's not evidence of that. Zelensky has claimed that North Korea is preparing to deploy 10,000 troops. This is like all over Ukrainian media and stuff, and Zelensky's been really making these claims about North Korea. And he's saying that this deployment would be the first step to a world war. And then in his nightly address on Sunday, Zelensky said that he expected Ukraine's Western backers to have a strong response to his claims about North Korean troops. He said, quote, "Now we have clear evidence that people are being supplied to Russia from North Korea, And these are not just workers for industries, but also military personnel. And we expect a normal, honest, strong reaction from our partners to this. In fact, this is another state joining the war against Ukraine, end quote. So again, I think it's really part of Zelensky's push for all these things that he wants, the long-range strikes, NATO to shoot down missiles, that victory plan that he outlined. Again, I do think it's possible that maybe there's a small number of troops, but the fact that the U.S. and NATO are not kind of jumping on this and saying and getting on board with the claim, tells me that it's probably just an effort by Ukraine to get, to try to drum up some more support. But we'll see, if more evidence comes out about it. All right, so that is it for the news for today. Please go check out our viewpoints. One from Jim Fitzgerald, Head of the Snake, unintended consequence of Israel's decapitation policy. One from Ted Carpenter, Kamala's growing flock of GOP hawks. One from Lara Witt, movement media are fighting for Palestinian liberation and against censorship. One from Branko Marchtich, Biden is inching toward war with Iran, Congress is AWOL. One from Ressa Browning, 10 lessons on U.S. foreign policy in Enough Already. And that's Scott Horton's great book on the terror wars. The article's over at the Mises Institute. And Scott's got another book coming out soon called Provoked, about the lead up to the war in Ukraine and the lead up, going back to the end of the Cold War. And it's going to be a very thorough account of what caused the war in Ukraine. Go check out our blog, Conflicts of Interest. Kyle's great show is in there. Lots of other stuff. We have a lot of stuff in the lower part of the page today because there's just been so much that went on over the weekend, different strikes in Gaza and just more atrocities. So go check all that out. The one, I think, piece of good news from the weekend is that the Yankees are going to the World Series. I am a Yankees fan, so I'm happy about that. If you can help us with our fundraiser, please go to antiwar.com/donate. If you can't do that, there's other ways you can support us just by sharing this show. Tell your friends about antiwar.com. Comment, follow us on social media. All that stuff really helps, and I really appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow with some more news. Thanks for listening.